Hello, everybody. This is Craig Sargent with Big League Coaching. I'm here with the Cy Young Award winner, Mark Davis. Today, we're going to be covering the four-seam fastball, the two-seam fastball, and the changeup. Before we go into today's class, one more of the background about Mark Davis. His Cy Young Award year in 1989, playing with multiple different organizations, the atmosphere of the cities. He has quite the stories. I'm excited for him to be on Big League Coaching. Before we jump into it, Mark, let's talk about 89, the Cy Young. You went from a starter to a reliever, winning a Cy Young as a closer, which is extremely rare, which I don't even know how many closers there has been who has won Cy Young. But let's talk about the 89 year mark, some things that you changed to make yourself become that Cy Young Award winner besides that nasty curveball. Everybody, this is Mark Davis.
Greg, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. To go back to what you were talking about, I think that that's something that when I was with San Francisco playing with the Giants, we had a good team. We were in contention. So basically what we did as a pitching staff is sometimes I needed to start, sometimes I'd come out of the bullpen. So the consistency that I had with my role was a number of different roles. It wasn't just one role. So that was something that for me it was getting used to it. I think in professional baseball that you need to be able to handle a lot of things that are thrown your way. And when I think it was July, we were in Chicago and we played a game. After the game, I was contacted by our GM, come up, talk to him, and we were told, myself and Keith Comstock were told we were traded to San Diego. So we were going to fly out in the morning to Montreal. And Mark Grant, Keith Comstock, myself, and Chris Brown were the four players that were in the trade. San Francisco got Dave Dravecky, a starting pitcher, Craig Lefferts, a reliever, and Kevin Mitchell, a power hitting outfielder. So they were in one day, they became a much stronger team. They added more home run power. They had a left-handed reliever and a left-handed starter to come in. So it gave myself an opportunity and Mark Grant to go to San Diego and basically get with a 12-46 team to learn the role of basically a late left-hander, which I was very fortunate that in San Diego, that was the only place I played that I did not make a start. So I was able to do one role. We had a lot of games that I could learn, and that was in 1987. 1988, I took over the closer role basically at the halfway point, and then in 89, I was the closer. So I was able to do that for about a year and a half, 2 years. So I got comfortable in the way that you pitch out of the bullpen late.
Sure. So people listening now that are starters, closers, that will probably come down later in life. Majority of these folks kind of start as a starter, right? I mean, that's how it usually starts, no pun intended.
Yeah. Well, I do feel like most people, you want to go out and you want to start the game and you want to pitch a lot in the game. So when you're in amateur baseball, most pitchers, you are a starter. You're used to throwing multiple innings. As you get into professional baseball, you kind of go into one realm or the other. But as an amateur pitcher, the thing that you focus on is getting out and getting able to repeat your delivery. If you can repeat your delivery, you can throw the ball where you want. If you throw the ball where you want, you can force them to put the ball in play. You force them to put the ball in play, you see what kind of stuff you have. So overall, all you're trying to do is play the game. I know I grew up, I just wanted to play against the other team. I wanted to hit, I wanted to pitch. I just enjoyed baseball. So that we start from that basic desire of being a baseball player.
What age, two questions here. What age did you start pitching? And to go back to your career, what was your favorite city you played in? What fans gave you the most energy when you pitched?
I was 10 years old when I first started playing baseball, and it was in Northern California. And I pitched from my first year. Everybody that could throw the ball in the strike zone basically pitched. If you had 13 children on your team and 7 of them could throw the ball over the plate, that's who got the pitch. So from that point, I felt like I was able to get on the mound. I played first base, I played outfield, wherever a left-hander could play, I played. So it basically came down to I threw strikes, and as I got older, I threw a little bit harder than the average player on the team. So I tended to get more starts, and I think that's what we try to get our guys to do is develop the fastball. And I think as a young age, you develop your fastball by playing long toss. When you play long toss, you develop good habits of throwing the baseball and getting the ball to carry. And that'll be one of our topics that we're talking about today.
No doubt. I want to make sure for everyone listening today, Eric Ortega is doing some stretching that Mark and our other instructor, Bill Lasky, for pitching. Pre-pitching, after pitching. This is the Giants instructor who can definitely train you guys for the right way to stretch. It's huge. I'm sure Mark has different stretching lessons he'll share later on, which make him throw harder. But speaking of the fastball, speaking of throwing hard, let's jump into it, Mark. Four-seam fastball, what are we looking at?
Well, basically, the fastball and the changeup are your building blocks of your delivery. I'm going to show you here a four-seam fastball, and this is taken in an Edgertronic camera. It's a super slow-motion camera. But what you get to do is you can see how the ball comes out of the hand and pronates. And what you're getting right here is just a four-seam fastball. You're behind the pitch, and you're trying to get the ball to spin as much as you can. Okay, now I'm going to show you why the higher spin rate, a ball appears to rise. You have fly balls and swing misses. That's basically what you get out of a higher spin rate four-seam fastball. This complements a curveball. Okay, now here's the grips to throw this pitch. If you look at it, I have the hoop on the left side of my hand. And on the left side of my hand, you see that little hoop that comes back around on my middle finger. What that does is the bigger side of this ball with the seams is on my longest finger. My shorter index finger is on the part of the seams that come back a little bit. That gives you a feel for throwing the ball with backspin. You want to put the pads of the first of your two fingers where the first knuckle bends. You want to have your two fingers there. And if you look at the middle picture, you see the thumb is in between those two fingers. And that's basically how you get the ball to set in the middle of your hand, and you got the ball riding on your ring finger to where now that ball is a comfortable feel in your hand. I separated my fingers. A lot of players or a lot of pitchers like their fingers to be together.
And that's for the left-handers, obviously for the grips we're seeing below is for a lefty. Righty, same difference, the horseshoe going on the outside, correct?
Yes, everything is reversed for the right-hander. Good pickup. That's something that you look at that ball, and you flip it around, and where the hoop's on the other side, the right-hander has the same dimensions with his shorter finger. And the one interesting note is everybody on the field throws a four-seam fastball. Position players are taught to throw four-seam because the ball carries straighter and it carries its line. So if you're throwing a ball from deep shortstop, you get back and you throw it, it goes straight to your first baseman. If you throw a two-seamer, the ball will run a little bit more, and it's a harder pitch to control at distance and a harder throw to catch. So when we start as a young kid, the four-seam fastball is what we teach. Now, when we talked about the higher spin rate, what I mean by that is when you throw a baseball, it has backspin. The backspin is what makes the ball appear in the human brain, which is our computer, to rise. What it doesn't do is rise. It goes down less than a ball that's thrown without spin. So when we look at that, there's a machine, or it's a camera that we use, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well in a couple of slides. But it's what shows the spin rate of the ball, and it shows, because it takes a bunch of pictures, it shows the flight of the baseball. And when that ball appears to rise, our human computer, our brain, sees the ball, and that's where you see a lot of swing and misses. The ball does not go where our human brain says it should. That's why we get swings and misses, and that's why you hit the bottom of the baseball and you see fly balls and pop-ups. So that ball right there, like we talked about, the four-seamer thrown with high velocity, it'll have a higher spin rate. Some pitchers that throw with an average major league velocity that have high spin rate, this also plays well for them.
I'm thinking Garrett Cole for righties. I'm thinking Aroldis Chapman, both guys who throw upper 90s. As we see a kid here who's about to throw a four-seam fastball. Is Garrett Cole, I mean, you're with the Kansas City Royals organization. As I understand, you're focused on the Royals, but of course, Garrett Cole's the first guy to come to mind for myself. Would you agree that he probably is the most dominant four-seam fastball in today's game? I
do. I feel like he's an upper 90s velocity, and he's got a high spin rate. He's at 25 to 2,800, possibly a little bit more than that. And what that means is the average spin rate of a fastball for a four-seamer could be at 2,300. So we're looking at 300-400 miles an hour higher spin rate. So what that allows him to do is pitch up in the strike zone. When you pitch up in the strike zone, now you become a much more devastating pitcher because you can create something from the knees all the way to the waist. You're not wasting any part of the strike zone. When you see him throw, and what we're going to do is, this is a big, strong right-hander right here that we have, and I want to show the flight of his ball.
How old is this kid here? Is he 16?
No, he's a college pitcher. I believe he did get drafted this year, but it's I would say 19, 20 years old. Now see the tracer right there? That tracer, I'll go back to that and let you see that again. Watch him, his delivery, he'll come off his line, and his ball tends to be straighter. Now, if you come off the line, his ball can also cut. Okay, see how that ball cut a little bit? You see the little yellow tracer, how that ball came back to his arm side? A lot of times when you hit and you're spinning to the first base side, you'll cut that ball a little bit. You want to stay through that ball, and we're talking about efficiency. How efficient am I throwing this ball into the strike zone? And the carry that you get, the higher the efficiency, the more you utilize your spin rate. Okay, now here's a pitch that we're going to use with two-seam guys. Now again, we talked about our four-seam guys and their power. They pitch up in the zone. Now the two-seam pitchers will pitch with, now you see the flight of that ball. You see how his fingers are on the two seams, where you get a little bit different spin. Now with this, the spin rate is a lower spin rate, and you get less movement that looks like the ball rises. What you end up getting here is a ball that has a tendency to, instead of going vertically, it'll go more horizontal. A lot of pitchers that throw two-seamers, their tilt, or their arm where they release the ball, their hand, is a little flatter position than a four-seamer. So we've got the two-seam fastball that has a little action down and away, and you've got the four-seam fastball that's straight through and up. All right, now I'm going to show you the what the attributes of a two-seamer are. The lower spin rate has more downward action. You can get ground balls. You're looking at something that complements a slider. This ball goes side to side. If I'm throwing a two-seamer, I want contact. I'm throwing the ball to try to get a ground ball. If there's guys on base, I can get a double play ball on just one pitch. If I can get a double play ball on one pitch, I can get off the field. And this is where, and as a reliever, you come into a game, a lot of times major league managers will bring in a guy that throws a two-seamer to get out of an inning. He's going to keep the ball on the ground. He's going to be able to get two outs on one play. That's something that I feel like our two-seam guys allow themselves an opportunity to navigate through a game differently than the four-seamer. Both are effective, but it's the two-seamer guys that might be able to get more double play balls, keep the ball in the infield. Here's what a grip looks like. Yes.
Man, the guy I'm thinking of for all the Giants fans out there is Javier Lopez. Bochy would bring him out, and I know Lopez would throw that two-seamer, that downward away movement from a lefty. I see Zach Brennan with the Yankees. He goes a little bit harder, of course, but those guys are throwing two-seamers. To your point, they're getting the ground ball. Were you first taught the four-seamer, or were you first taught the two-seamer? What felt more comfortable to you? I want to make sure the class understands, and it's more of a feel. If you're a high power guy, you're most likely throwing four seamers. If you're guys that's probably not throwing as much velocity, you're throwing two seamers. Is that right?
Well, that's ultimately, you kind of decide what you are by what the hitters tell you. Interesting that you bring up Javier Lopez. He pitched for me when I was with the Arizona Diamondbacks. We took him from being over the top traditional type left-hander and moved him to the side. So it's a good point that you bring him up, because he had really good movement from down low. He was one of the best left-handed relievers for years. His expertise and his strength was his athletic ability. He was able to go from basically a mid-80s four-seam fastball that didn't have a lot of movement to dropping his arm angle and moving the ball into the strike zone with a large amount of movement. I was really pleased to see him develop the way he did. He was a great kid, worked hard, and he took his athleticism and was able to make a great career out of it. And he was a guy, like you said, he had very good movement. They would bring him in to be able to throw and get that ground ball, and he threw his breaking ball off of it, complemented his sinking fastball. And that's Yes.
Yeah, I was saying for righties as well. I mean, watching Javier pitch, getting those ground balls. I mean, the Giants have won multiple World Series because of that man. For right-hand pitchers who want to see another two-seamer, Bill Lasky was also another instructor, had a great two-seam, and coincidence, he was actually my pitching coach, and I played second base. I had a little tail in my throw. He dropped me down, never been on the mound before, and I became a submarine pitcher, kind of like Javier Lopez. And all I threw was that two-seam, and I had that downward movement, got a lot of ground balls. People are scared of contact, and I want to make sure, these kids understand, don't be afraid to pitch a contact when your ball's moving.
Exactly. And that's one of the things it's interesting you mentioned Bill Lasky. We were teammates, and I would have loved to have been able to throw a ball that moved like his to get the ground balls. I could not do that. If I got a double play, it's because you squared my fastball up and hit a rocket, a one hopper at my infielders, and they would turn a double play that way. But that one of the things that you did that you mentioned right there was you were an infielder. You were used to getting the ball, throwing it over to a position player. So when you got on the mound, it was like, hey, I'm just starting to play. I'm throwing the ball there and letting him hit it. When you do that, you relax, and now your ball even moves more. So now they're hitting the top of the ball even on a more consistent basis. So that's one of the things I do like to see is when you have a position player come to the mound, you want to keep his aggressiveness. You don't want him to think that pitching is anything different than throwing the baseball. We get a lot of pitchers that get on the mound and they think they have to do something different. But the best pitchers are guys out there that are athletic, that just want to throw the ball in the strike zone and start the play. And that's basically what you did from second base. You got on the mound and you said, okay, let's go. Here, hit it to me. I'm going to catch it. I'm going to turn a double play. I'm going to get the ball. And that was what we like to see is a pitcher that has done some things on the field that other than pitching, I think they become more aware of what you can do as an athlete. And that's where if you have an athlete, you're going to be able to come off the mound and be able to cover his ground and get plays off bunts, a lot of different things that you can do if you're a very mobile pitcher.
People that don't know this, two closers who I think were position players, they got drafted as position players who became closers, Mariano Rivera and Trevor Hoffman. To your point, they weren't even pitchers. It was just normal to them, and the movement they got and the pitches that I'm sure you've taught and, Trevor Hoffman, the changeup will go into. But going back to the two-seam, Mark, not to get ahead of myself, comparing the four-seam and two-seam, when you're holding the different grips, are you putting more pressure on the middle finger compared to the two-seam? Or are you holding it differently? Are you gripping it harder? What's the difference?
Well, you brought up a point where you had mentioned that earlier about the two-seamer and what are you trying to get a feel on it. Basically, it's everybody's personal preference of grip. The grip is personally to everyone. So how you might throw a ball and how I might throw a ball are similar but different because you're going to put your own personal touch on it. The way the ball comes off of your finger, whether it's your index finger or your middle finger for a two-seamer, is unique to each individual, and that's what makes, for me, pitching a great art form because everybody can do it the same way differently. Every left-hander is going to throw the ball and they're going to get backspin. Well, how's my backspin going to affect the ball compared to another left-hander's backspin? And that's where when you have certain things that maybe you touch it a little bit longer. I know Lasky liked to pinch his index finger to make his sinker move. I tried all things trying to throw my two-seamer to move. I was because of my arm angle, I did not get the movement that a lot of other people did. So I basically stuck to my four-seamer, and it took me years to understand what the four-seamer was. So now, with the invention of all of our technology, we can pick out what people are quicker in their development, so we can basically enhance what they do at a quicker level to make it easier for somebody to be able to pitch to their highest potential. And that's where, when you talk about these things, you've got the two-seamer, you've got the four-seamer, and both of those are effective. I'm going to show you a two-seamer right here. This is the right-hander that we looked at. That's a two-seam pitcher. I want to show you the first one, and the second one's going to be the tracer.
And how old is this gentleman here? I want to make sure everyone
Another college pitcher.
Okay. And we have kids from 9 years old till mid-30s, so the age does not matter. I just want to make sure everyone is aware of, this kid has some good two-seam shit.
This guy's got good stuff. Now here, if you look, I'm going to go back. I want you to see that again. Look at the flight of his ball. His natural tailing action, this is the ball that, now you see that right there without the tracer, that ball's got some sinking action. It's not a big sink, but it's going to be enough to get the ball on the bottom side of the bat. Right there, that ball's going down and away from his arm. So a right-hander's throwing this, it's going to go down and away to a left-hander. If a left-hander pulls that pitch, he's going to hit the ball to the second baseman or shortstop. Right-handers are going to pull that ball, so you're going to see a lot of balls to the shortstop and third baseman. He's going to get a lot of ground balls with the action that he has on his two-seam fastball. And again, the two-seam fastball, if people hear the term sinker, that's a two-seam fastball. The movement that you get is a sinking movement, so they call it a sinker. So if you hear somebody referring to a pitch as a sinker, he's throwing a two-seam fastball.
I mean, for lefties, I'm thinking Zach Britton, the ball's going the other way. I named 3 Yankees, but God, that bullpen stuff is pretty nasty. Same thing for lefties. Yeah. I mean,
lefties are going to do the same thing in reverse. They're going to throw the ball to the right-hander and get a lot of ground balls. Zach Britton is kind of a hybrid of sorts. He throws the ball very hard, but he also has a good moving two-seam fastball. It is an unbelievable to see how much movement he gets and how hard he throws the baseball. So when you're looking at these guys, he knows because of the spin rate, because of the tilt, he knows what his ball is going to do. So therefore, he can attack the strike zone better with consistency because he knows how that pitch works. And this is where, when we go back to technology, it just allows you as a pitcher and as a position player, a hitter, to go in certain areas that might enhance what you do, what you bring to the table physically.
Mark, what is that tracer you have? So people that want to maybe take, some pictures or film them. What is that tracer that has that? What is that called?
That's just a tracer. That's something that our video guy put on for Bill, and it's something that actually shows what the pitch does. Now you can see some of this. They'll have this on some games, but I'm going to talk to you about the things that we use to assess. When a pitcher signs professionally, he'll come in, and one of the first things we do is we get him on an Edgertronic. And I'm just going to show you what this camera looks like. It's a very small camera, and it takes very slow motion pictures, so you can see what the fingers are, where the fingers are on the ball, and when he lets the ball go, you can see if he pronates, supinates, if he's not behind the baseball. When we talk about going in and looking at somebody and their efficiency is a big word now. You look at spin rate, you look at efficiency. Well, the spin rate tells you how much the ball is going to spin up vertically, and the efficiency tells you how much of the spin rate the pitcher is actually using and getting onto the ball. And this is the camera that shows you in very slow motion terms what your hand looks like on the baseball as it gets thrown. Okay, now here is the Rapsodo. This is what they use in conjunction with. If you see some people throwing in spring training games and there's a little box 15 feet from the plate, from the home plate area, it's a Rapsodo. And this is a camera that takes pictures, a lot of pictures, and it basically shows you the flight of the baseball. If you look at the photo on the left-hand side here, you see that 87.3. What that is that's the velocity of the pitch. If you see the little baseball there, what that is it's showing you the spin of the baseball. You've got a little stick that runs through the ball. That's showing you the tilt of where your hand is. So that ball's off a little bit, and it also shows you the spin rate, which on this pitch was 1966, and it's 95% efficient. So with that, you get about 1872 total spin that he's actually putting on the ball. All right, so that's how we look at a guy when he signs. We take slow motion video. We also then have this camera that also matches up and shows you the flight of the baseball, so you can actually see what he's getting numbers wise. Finally, the last thing that we're looking at when we take that picture is when he gets in the games, we use what we call is the TrackMan. And the TrackMan basically is, I don't know if you'll notice this, but it's something that when you look at a baseball field, behind home plate, there'll be this black box, and it's just it's a square. And in it is the TrackMan. And the TrackMan is basically a radar, and it uses like three-dimensional technology to where the characteristics, and you get to see the flight of the baseball. So on this, you'll see spin rate, you'll see where the ball is extension, how far he gets out, and the height where the ball is thrown from. So we get to see quite a few different numbers that you can see that can help the consistency of a pitcher. You can also see if somebody's changed their mechanics over a month or two, where somebody's not as effective. You can go and look and see if his numbers have changed, and that's another way of keeping guys in is as close to optimal as you can. So now you take all of that information and you go right into traditional changeups. Now these traditional changeups, when you look at them, here's what a changeup looks like slow motion. Look at the middle finger and the ring finger, or the fingers that throw this pitch. You see the two fingers? You see the index fingers on the side of the ball. Let's go there again. Now you see this right here. You see how that ball is thrown with the two middle fingers? When you do that, you're throwing the ball with less velocity because the two power fingers in your hand are your index finger and your middle finger. You're sliding that index finger off to the side of the ball, and that's what we call the circle change. He's got, like right there, his hand looks like an OK, where it's a circle, and that's where we call a two-seam circle, four-seam circle. So that's where we get that name from. And basically, you're throwing that with those two fingers, and you're throwing it like you're trying to throw a fastball. Now, the four-seam changeup.
Mark,
same thing.
When we're going back to the changeup, the two-seam, the four-seam, are these all the same angles? I mean, I know, kids are going up. Some people throw their curveball too high over the top. I mean, that's all hitters understand what pitches are throwing. So I want to make sure for people listening here.
Very good question. That's a good pickup. Basically, when you throw, you want to have your hand be about the same spot with your fastball and your changeup. But traditionally, we've seen the numbers where the changeup, you're just a tick lower on your throwing with a changeup. Whether it's subconsciously thinking you want to move the ball a little bit more, you do get a little bit lower. So yes, that's a good pickup. When we talk about breaking balls, which will be in another session, the breaking ball you want to try to keep in the same spot, and they call that tunneling. If everything comes out of the same slot, as a hitter, it's harder to pick that pitch up because they're all coming out of the same spot. So that's a good pickup. You probably could hit because you notice those things where if a guy raised up and his arm stroke was a little higher, you knew it was another pitch. So therefore you could identify, you eliminate, and now you can take a better swing. So now not every hitter is going to think that way, but the ones that do, usually those are the ones that sign professionally, because it's just a little bit more of an edge that you had and you didn't even know you had it. You just automatically saw something different. Boom, you knew what it was. So what we're trying to do as a pitcher is we want this to look just like his four-seam fastball, because the spin of the ball is going to be the same. You're going to have a higher spin rate than the two-seam changeup, so therefore the ball's not going to go down as quickly. So you look at it, so now it complements the four-seam fastball. It's going to look like the four-seam fastball, and you throw it in fastball counts. If a hitter's worked the count and it's 2-1, he's thinking, man, I'm going to get a fastball. I'm going to get out there and cheat and try to hit this ball out of the ballpark. If you throw the changeup at that time, and the other quality of the four-seam changeup is it's the velocity change over movement. You want velocity to come off that pitch, more like a 10 to 12 mile an hour difference. When you get that, the guys swing at your fastball, and when the ball's not there, you're taking that much off. So that's the important thing of the changeup four-seam. You're still wanting the hitter to swing the bat. It's a contact pitch. Even though you might get some swings and misses, it's a contact pitch. All changeups you want to throw in the strike zone to get a swing, unless it's a pitch that you can control and you use it as an out pitch. Then you can kind of move it over. Most guys throw their changeup in the strike zone in fastball counts to try to create the ball put in play. And what sells this is your fastball arm speed. If you have fastball arm speed, hitters are going to try to hit the fastest pitch you throw. If it's thrown from the same slot, they can't differentiate between the four-seam changeup and the four-seam fastball. That's why you get the swings and misses. It's a very hard pitch to differentiate when it's done right.
When you show the grips here for the four-seam changeup, what changeup did you throw, Mark? What did you find success with? And when you first started pitching, you said at a young age, what pitches did you throw?
Well, here's what I started out, and I threw the four-seam fastball probably the least effective way. I threw the ball off the two seams, but across the two seams, not with the two seams. I'm going to show you what that looks like here. See right here? You see the seams? Okay. For me, this would be a traditional two-seamer, just like we showed earlier. I threw across. So therefore, the first thing that the Philadelphia Phillies did after drafting and signing me was they went to the four-seam for me. That's why I started throwing a four-seamer. So with that, the reason why I did it was because that was the way I threw. And I think if I look back now, what that did for me was gave me a lot of spin rate to where I could utilize the swing and miss. Now, the changeup for me, when I was in the minor leagues and learning how to throw it, I tried a lot of different grips. The one that I settled on in the big leagues was a four-seam changeup, and this is how I threw it. It was a circle change. My two fingers in the middle of my hand, which is my middle finger and my ring finger, were the ones I threw the ball off of. I had a guide, which was my pinky on the side, and the circle of my index finger and my thumb on the other side. And I tried to throw that like a fastball. All I wanted the hitter to see was arm speed of my fastball, and I didn't want the pitch to get there. And the grip was what allowed me to throw the ball slower. I couldn't throw that as hard as my four-seamer just because of the two power fingers that I had. One of them was off the ball on the side of the ball. So that's just, you're trying to show them something that it's not.
Visually, I mean, Bill Lasky's the one that taught me my changeup. I did throw submarine, and mine was a parachute changeup, and I was taught to visually look at home plate and land it there. Or so, most of the people that are listening here are over the top. So what were you looking at? I mean, compared to the four-seam and two-seam, were you looking at the glove? Were you aiming for their feet? What changed for you visually throwing these different pitches?
Good thought process. I think when you did that, because you threw from the lower angle, you probably came over the ball, and your ball you turned over, which created a really good depth. And that's a quality pitch from the lower angle. And that's why you want to have that ball go to home plate, because you want that ball to spin down. That would be, I would look at that pitch as a specialty changeup. You did something that made that ball move quite a bit, and you did it from a lower arm angle. So that ball was probably very effective for you against left-handed hitters, because they could not wait and they'd swing over the top of it. For the four-seam guys, what they're trying to get accomplished here is they're throwing it just like their fastball. You're picking out, let's say for me to throw it in the strike zone, I had to throw it at the catcher's head or the glove or the umpire's head. I would just go wherever I had to go for my release point to get the ball to go where I needed it to. A lot of times, like you said, you had to feel the ball had to get to the plate. It might not get there, but that was your thought process. Mine was, I would try to throw mine between the knees of the catcher because I wanted to spin. So I had to finish my delivery and really show good arm speed and good spin at the finish. For a four-seam fastball, I think you need to have that. Now, with a lot of guys that throw, they want to throw the two-seam fastball. We'll go with the four-seam fastball right here, or changeup. I want you to see what this ball does on the tracer. Look at both of these. Say that ball, see how that ball went to his arm side? He got on the inside of that ball. Now watch what this one does. That ball had a lot of movement the other way. Now, where he threw a fastball that cut a little bit, this one, he pronated a little earlier, and that ball had a little movement to the outside. So what you're trying to do on the four-seamer is stay right behind it, so you want the efficiency of the spin rate to come into play. And that ball right there has movement. I guarantee he's getting some people out with it. But to match up to his fastball, you want to be right behind the four-seam fastball and the four-seam changeup. So that's one of the pitches that I feel like is something that he'll get some outs with it. And I think with time, he's going to get even better.
And that's for the lefty put-away pitch there. I'm trying to compare it to the two-seam changeup. I'm going through scenarios of at-bats. I'm taking myself through the college days of how I would set people up and what pitches go after what. So you're saying, fastball high and into the lefty, then hit him with a four-seam changeup blown away for a strikeout pitch? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. I think what you're saying is basically you're talking about pitching back and forth with velocities. So you want to throw a fastball inside to speed the hitter up because you knew you had that turn me over changeup. So you would throw the ball in to make the guy quicker. So you want to see that bat head pop out. You want him to try to pull the ball. As soon as you see the hitter, left-handed for you, open up and try to pull the ball and hit the ball foul down the line, you knew you opened up the outside part of the plate for his changeup. So therefore, yeah, you're pitching with velocities, and once you see that, now you attack with your changeup. If you throw a fastball in and he doesn't make any adjustments, keep throwing the fastball in until he makes the adjustment. And then once he does, that's when the changeup complements that fastball. And now that's what we call pitching. And that ideally is the building blocks of somebody's repertoire. You go out and you throw pitches that force him to do something. The fastball inside, just like you said, you'll identify if somebody has a good bat, quick, fast hands and quick bat. Once you see that and once you open him up, that's when you go something soft. Now, you could also go soft until he waits back, and then you pound him in. So you can use it both ways. They complement each other. And the better your arm speed is on the changeup, the more you can do this effectively, because that's one of the things. I played with a right-handed closer, Doug Jones, who did that well. He threw 88 or 80 miles an hour, and you could not tell the difference. He would give you the changeup or the fastball, and they looked alike. As you said, you had to guess. And even when you guessed, it might not be you might not put it in play. So the changeup can be a real effective pitch.
I'm thinking Houston Street. I mean, now he's retired. Houston Street and Trevor Hoffman. Some things that I struggled with throwing the changeup was obviously hanging it down the middle. I'm trying to throw the ball, low in the dirt for 2 strikes, if you will. What are some things that you've seen or maybe you've taught to get that more downward movement in that changeup? I mean, I know they drag their foot a little more. You said the changeup, it's more back in your hand and throwing off your middle finger. What are some adjustments, people can make to get that bite?
Well, ideally what you're looking at, and when you throw this with your changeup, you're trying to get to finish your delivery. Now, when we're looking at the four-seamer, you're going to go with the higher spin rate, but you still have to finish to do it. The two-seam changeup, now you're looking at the lower spin rate. And I think that would come over for what you were talking about with the movement. You finished thinking hit the plate. So that forced you to stay through your pitch. So you didn't have to think finish. You just had to think hit the plate. Most guys have to think finish. So if they think fastball and I get out and I want to spin the ball out in front, that's where they get the finish. That's where you're not going to leave the ball down the middle. And if you do, if it's a fastball or if it's a changeup that's effective with velocity, you're going to get the guy out in front either way. But what you're talking about is actually just repeating the delivery and finishing the pitch. And that's one of the things that I think you'll find a lot of guys do that do well is they get out in front and they finish their changeup because they know they have to, because it's a softer pitch. And in the back of your mind, you're thinking, if I'm throwing something softer to a hitter, I better make sure I throw it and I have good action with it. So that's what I think the train of thought you were talking about is making sure that you finish the pitch. And it's the same with all your pitches. It's just with your changeup, because it's not a maximum velocity, you can get out in front and actually show some arm speed with that. When we look at that.
Yeah, Marco Estrada is the guy I'm thinking of. I know you can go to the two-seam grip, but Marco Estrada is the guy I'm thinking of right away.
Exactly. He's got like 10 to 12 miles an hour off of his fastball, and he throws 90 miles an hour, and he throws a changeup that you can't hit. He is a dominant pitcher with an average to a tick under average fastball, but it plays well because he has such a great changeup. So if you never knew what the gun said, you would say he has a really good fastball. And you say it because he does have a good fastball, because it plays that way. The number on the gun is a number that tells you how hard you're throwing. It doesn't tell you how effective it is. So when you have a changeup that's as devastating as his, and I think the reason why you like it is because he gets a lot of swings and misses, and then he comes right back with a four-seam fastball at 89 miles an hour by a hitter. And that's what's fun. I feel like that's fun. Yeah, you look at the spin rate and you throw a pitch at that speed, and then you take off and throw a 12-mile-an-hour difference, and it's like a Bugs Bunny changeup, and that's where you get guys swinging and missing. So that's a good pickup. I do think he's a four-seam changeup guy that for me is very effective. Now with the two-seam, I think there's a lot of guys that throw the two-seam changeup that Marco comes to mind for me. Four-seamer, I think there's a lot of guys that we throw with the two-seam, but the reason why you do it is with the lower spin rate, your efficiency doesn't have to be as high, because the less efficient, the more movement you get, the more the ball's going to go down. So that's why it complements the two-seam fastball. When you're looking at these things, it's movement over velocity. I'm going to show you the grips. And when you think about it, I'm throwing a two-seam changeup, And all I'm thinking about is having the ball move. You're going to allow the movement of the two seams to make this ball go down and away. Like we talked about with a two-seam fastball, the ball's going to have more side-to-side action, horizontal than vertical, which is up and down. So when you see this, pitchers that throw two-seamers usually pitch side-to-side in the strike zone, not up and down. So when you see a pitcher throw a two-seam fastball, this is where we talked about you want to throw it in the strike zone. A good two-seam sinker pitcher that has a good two-seam changeup might throw his changeup just below the strike zone because he has such good control with it. And you don't know as a hitter if that's on the knees or just below. And if it's the 0-1 count, the count's already no balls, one strike. You tend to swing at that pitch more than you would on a 1-0 count. And this is where the two-seam guy will throw the ball in the strike zone to get a ground ball. So when you look at that, there's a lot of things that you can do with the changeup that can make the at-bat go a lot more comfortable for the pitcher.
Greg Maddux, that's exactly what I'm thinking of when I watched grow up. Not a lot of high speed or fastball speed, and through the two seam changeup, got people out front, a lot of ground balls. So
that's a guy that when now we're talking about somebody that probably had 70 or 80 commands. Like you said, you loved watching him pitch because he was out there painting. He was an artist, and he could throw the fastball in that would catch the strike zone. You see all those guys pop out of the way and move their bats in the strike zone, and it would cut and catch the end of the strike zone. And that's where, if you have that kind of control, you can navigate through a game. He would not throw very many breaking balls. He might throw 10 a game. And all those was to just show something different because he was going to get you out with his fastball or his changeup. He just had unbelievable control, and he had confidence in what his pitches would do. And that's why he won 350-something games in the big leagues. And like you said, he did not blow people away with his velocity. He got you out with high control and movement. And he was fun to watch pitch.
Another guy for the students today, before we jump into the last slide here, Kyle Hendricks, same thing. He's probably the one and only you see. So people who don't throw hard right now, make sure you have the control and get the ball down, right?
Exactly. And that's another guy, like you said. You can pitch with lesser velocity. Your ball has to do something. I think when we go back to looking at the way your fingers leave the ball, when you throw a baseball and the ball leaves your hand, you do something a little bit different than somebody else does and touch a seam that gets the ball to spin slightly different, that gets the action that you need. And whatever that is, that's the it factor for him. And if you have a pitch and it doesn't look like anybody else's grip, but it works for you, it works. That's the beauty of baseball. Whatever works, works. You just have to be consistent with it. We're just trying to show you basically what the traditional grips are, something that's generic, vanilla, whatever you want to say. It's something that you can go off of that and experiment. Move down on the ball, move the ball back in your hand, move the ball to your pinky, whatever it is. These are the things that you trial and error allow you to see what works. Now, with all the information that we have and the technology, not only does the hitter tell you that the Rapsodo, the TrackMan can also tell you what the ball's doing, so you know if it's effective or not. So the beauty of what we do in today's game is you go out and you can throw a pitch, it looks good, it works in the game, and it can also be verified with numbers as well. But there are guys that throw that the numbers might not say it works, but it works. And if it does, keep throwing it.
I want to see this two-seam changeup here. This is the one I threw, obviously from the side, but this kid has a nasty one.
When you look at him here, when he throws that pitch, now what he does is he'll cut the ball a little bit. His action's going the other way. Now watch this tracer. See that ball had a little cut to it? See how that with the trace you can see that? Now, if you're doing that on purpose, that's an effective pitch. You can go sinker, two-seamer away and throw that ball that cuts at a lower velocity. That can be devastating. Now, when we talk about efficiency, if he could be a little bit more efficient with his release point, he could get the sink and the same thing as his two-seamer, and he could have two pitches. And that's something that if you can do, it's something that might be effective. But I think traditionally you want to have the pitch look like your fastball. And he has a good two-seam fastball. Just on these pitches, the ball looks like they cut a little bit. But his natural movement is something that's going to be a plus for him. And it's going to be something that'll help him in the future in games. Okay, I want you to think that the things to remember: fastball, changeup, they're the building blocks of your repertoire. The grip, like we talked about, is just what it is. If something works, keep it. It's Bruce Sutter threw the first split finger basically in the major leagues that was of note. He basically had a Hall of Fame career after he learned that pitch, and it was at that time individual to him. The ball, the spin of the ball and the flight can help you figure out what type of pitcher you are. We talked about the four-seamer. If you have high spin rate, you can pitch up in the strike zone. If you have a lower spin rate and you throw your two-seamer, now you can pitch down in the zone and pitch side to side. It just gives you, it's basically just gives you information to tell you which avenues you can explore. Not everybody throws high spin rate. Not everybody throws a moving two-seamer, but everybody can pitch. And now some pitchers use both four-seam and two-seam to complement each other. When you do that, you can throw up in the zone with a four-seamer and get ground balls with the two-seamer. And I think that might be the best of both worlds. I was not able to do it. I had to throw basically a four-seam fastball to make what I did work.
Yep. Going back to the very beginning, we'll field the last, I have about 3 questions before we wrap up here.
All right.
When you were a kid, you said you threw the four-seam, the two-seam, and then changeup. When did you start throwing the curveball? I know next class will be about the curveball and the specialty pitches you have taught throughout the major leagues. But I'm curious, when you were starting pitching, what pitches were you throwing, and when did you start adding the curveball?
And this is something that I did at a younger age than I allowed my kids to do. I have 2 boys, and I didn't allow them to throw a breaking ball until they were 13, 14 years old. And at that time, then it was just one an inning. So I was probably 10, 11, 12. I was still in Little League when I did. But if I could go back and if I knew what I know now, you can learn how to throw a breaking ball at any age. The age isn't a factor of how well you throw a breaking ball. It's the capabilities of throwing the breaking ball. And this is why I wanted to talk about the fastballs and the changeups in one session, because the fastball and the changeup you can use throughout your life. So fastballs to get comfortable with contact, and you use your changeup as a change of speed. You can throw in, you can throw out. You have multiple pitches in your repertoire already when you can do that. And how you do that is by commanding the pitch. And when you command the pitch, you are a much more consistent pitcher. Now, when you do that, let's say you've been throwing since you're 10, you're 13, 14, 15. Now when we introduce a breaking pitch to you, not only is it a weapon that you add to your arsenal, it's not the only pitch that you want to throw, because you know you can use your other pitches effectively. If somebody throws it early, sometimes they don't want to throw anything but that when it's a tight situation. Therefore, they don't develop as a pitcher. And what we're looking at here is trying to develop. When you develop your fastball, and that's going out, long tossing, getting the ball out at distance with a repeatable throw, that is working on strengthening your arm. Throwing it in the game is working on realizing that you get people out with your fastball and you relax and you allow it to happen. When you throw your breaking ball your whole life, now when you throw a fastball, you tend to do more. When you do more, now you don't throw the ball in the strike zone. Now you're stuck, and now you're behind the count, and you have one pitch that you have to throw, and you don't feel comfortable with it. So my answer to that is learn to trust your fastball. Pitch with your fastball. Let the changeup complement it. Now you don't fear anybody, because you will throw your fastball to anybody.
You mentioned long toss. Do you throw your changeup when you go long toss, and how far would you throw your changeup if you do?
Good question. And we do this for our professional players. The one thing that we do when everybody that signs with us, we go out and we ask what pitches they throw. If they do not have a changeup, we give them a changeup, and we teach them that you're going to pitch back and forth with velocities. It's very important for you to feel that back and forth. It's very hard to tell a good changeup. You can see spin out of the hand on a curveball, but you cannot see a well-thrown changeup, the difference between that and the fastball. But you go back to a changeup. When I get out and I'm throwing long toss and I come back in, I'm at 90. I'm just talking about, somebody that's an adult, 90 to 100 feet. I'm throwing my changeup that far because I need arm speed to throw it that far. But that's what gives you that fastball arm speed with your changeup. And you'll find out how the grip works. You fine tune by moving the ball in your hand a little bit and seeing what gives you the best movement, seeing what gives you the best action. So that's a good pickup. That's one of the things that we definitely have our guys do. And I'd like to see, in my opinion, I think for a younger person, it's just changing the grip and throwing a fastball. You're not trying to manipulate the ball in any way or form.
Well, that's going to be it for today, Mark. Next session we'll be talking about curveball, specialty pitches. For other classes, strength and conditioning with Eric Ortega. For outfield, we have Joe Youngblood. For infield, we have Mr. Davenport. Thank you for today's class. Looking forward to seeing you guys for more. Mark, appreciate it, man.
Craig, thank you. I appreciate it too. And everybody in the audience, I appreciate you taking your time to listen to us. We have some great coaches that you take a look and see what's available and sign up. And looking forward to having you in one of our classes in the near future.
Press record again.